Welcome to this fictional audiobook that's going to tell the story of a teacher who quits her job to become a full-time giant after finding a way to grow to 125 feet tall. She's fed up, over her job, and as you shall find out, extremely hungry. Chapter 1: The Discovery. Madeline Stone sat behind her desk in the flickering fluorescent light of room 14B, her long blonde hair tied lazily in a loose bun. A dull roar of teenage voices buzzed outside the classroom, but she didn't care anymore. Not really. For the third time that week, she'd been told by a red-faced administrator that her attitude toward the children was unproductive, that she needed to be more uplifting and empathetic. Empathetic? She nearly laughed. After 12 years of underpaid drudgery, smirking brats, and empty coffee cups, the only thing she felt empathy for was her former self. The version of Madeline who once thought teaching was noble. She reached into her desk drawer, brushing past a stack of unfinished grading and a squashed granola bar, and pulled out the small black notebook she'd been hiding for months. The leather-bound book wasn't part of any curriculum. It was filled with strange equations, sketches, and half-legible scribbles she'd found in a locked drawer in the back room of the school library, an unused science annex supposedly off-limits. It took her weeks to decipher most of it. But the final equation was chillingly simple. Growth. Real, physical, exponential human growth. It had seemed like nonsense until she tried the formula on a test plant in her flat. A dandelion, no bigger than her thumb, had grown to the size of her refrigerator in under 10 seconds. The walls of her flat were still cracked from the ordeal. The noise had scared her neighbours. She'd told them it was an experimental art project. They stopped asking questions. And now, sitting in that soul-sucking classroom filled with other people's children, Madeline had made her decision. She was done being stepped on. It was time to step on others. Later that night, she stood barefoot in her tiny apartment, the cold tile pressing against her heels. She had tied her hair back, stripped down to the basics, a black sports bra and shorts, and set the vial on the counter. A shimmering blue liquid swirled inside. She smiled as she swallowed it. The pain was immediate, a fire igniting inside her bones, muscles stretching, skin humming. The walls burst around her like paper. She gasped as her body tore through the apartment building. Glass shattered, concrete cracked, lights blinked out one by one. When she finally stood tall, towering over the city skyline, she laughed. Her blonde hair now flowed like a golden banner in the night wind, and her ocean blue eyes scanned the horizon with new purpose. She felt the clouds brush her skin. The moon was suddenly very close. Then she remembered the article. A few weeks earlier, she'd stumbled across a conspiracy blog post while researching rumours of old military test zones. One line had caught her eye. Rumour has it there's a secret village hidden in the forests of North Albury. No roads, no internet. Population 800, all men. A failed post-war experiment in utopian masculinity. Still operational, completely off-grid. It sounded like a joke at first, but she'd saved the coordinates anyway. And now, as she took her first thunderous step forward, her massive foot crushing the street below into powder, Madeline knew exactly where she was going. North Albury, 800 men, no witnesses. Time, she murmured with a grin, for a good old-fashioned rampage. Chapter 2: Goddess of the Green Valley. The ground quaked long before the villagers saw her. It was early morning in the isolated settlement of North Albury. Mist clung to the rooftops like a thin veil, and the hum of generators blended with the soft chatter of early risers. Nestled in a forgotten valley surrounded by dense pine forests, the village had been untouched by the outside world for decades. That peace shattered with the first distant boom. Boom, boom, boom. The rhythm was unnatural, too heavy, too deliberate. Birds took flight in flocks, Dogs barked and ran in circles. The men of the village stopped what they were doing and looked to the hills. Then they saw her. Madeline emerged from the trees like a living monument, her towering 125-foot form casting a shadow that consumed entire fields. Twigs and branches fell from her golden hair, and her eyes glinted with delight. Her skin glowed faintly with residual energy from the serum, and her smirk was wide and cruel. She stood just beyond the village, hands on her hips, watching them scatter. "Oh no," she cooed mockingly, her voice a sultry boom that shook window panes. "Don't run! I came all this way to meet you." Some froze in shock. Others screamed and sprinted, grabbing children, ducking into houses, climbing into trucks that roared to life far too slowly. Madeline took a single step forward, her bare foot descending onto the village's watchtower, flattening it like a matchstick model. She giggled. "Oops." Men scrambled across the open square, some making for the trees, others trying to hide behind water tanks or in sheds. It didn't matter. Madeline could see them all. From her height, they were little more than frantic insects in a terrarium. "You know," she said, kneeling down and resting her massive arms on her thighs, "I used to teach boys just like you. So smug, so loud, so useless." Her hand swept across the square with casual grace. 3 men vanished under her palm, crushed into the dirt with a wet crunch. She brought her fingers to her lips and licked them thoughtfully. Mmm. Salty. A group of men broke for the edge of the woods. "Oh, I don't think so." With a few quick strides, she cut them off. Her foot lifted, huge, pale and slow, before descending like a meteor. The men screamed, pushed, clawed, but it was hopeless. She stomped and the forest edge shuddered. 6 more gone. Madeline let out a satisfied sigh and looked around. "You thought no one knew you existed out here, but I did, and now I'm your goddess." She spotted a tall man trying to scale a rooftop. With a playful expression, she leaned over, pinched him delicately between 2 fingers, and dangled him before her eyes. "You look like you used to be important," she said. "Were you a leader here? A mayor, maybe?" The man sobbed, twisting in her grip. Madeline laughed. "Not anymore." Without another word, she opened her mouth and dropped him in. She closed her lips and swallowed hard. No chewing, just a long gulp. The outline of his tiny form slid down her throat. "Mmm, you taste like fear," she said, her voice dripping with pleasure. The screams intensified, but Madeline only grinned. This was catharsis. This was freedom. A dozen more men scattered from a barn. She sauntered over and slammed her foot down on the roof, collapsing it in one brutal motion. There was nowhere to run, no cavalry coming, just one towering woman with a hunger, literal and metaphorical, for revenge, power, and control. She paused briefly, scanning the panicked survivors. "I'm not even close to full," she announced. Then, with a delighted squeal, she raised her arms high and shouted, "Let the real rampage begin!" Chapter 3. No mercy, no negotiation. Madeline's towering form loomed over the heart of the village, her smile widening as she strolled between streets too narrow for her to walk through without obliterating houses underfoot. Her toes crushed picket fences and garden beds. Her heels left deep, steaming craters in the soil. The screams were delicious. The scurrying men, pitiful. She wanted more. She wanted all of them. She stepped up to a line of homes, modest cabins with sloped roofs, now trembling under the weight of her presence. Her fingers reached out, grasping the edge of the nearest one. With the screech of splintering wood, she ripped the entire roof clean off. Inside, 4 men cowered around a dining table, eyes wide as dinner plates. One dropped to his knees. "Please," he begged up at her, his voice thin and cracking. "We're farmers. We We don't know anything about what this village used to be. We're not a threat." Madeleine tilted her head, mockingly intrigued. "Oh? So you're useful little insects? That's your plea?" She lowered her face closer to the open room, her warm breath sweeping over them like a furnace. "No," she said, shaking her head. "You see, I'm done listening to excuses. Every little man has a story, but none of them matter to a goddess." Her hand descended, 2 fingers plucking up the pleading man while the other 3 screamed and scattered. She brought him slowly toward her lips. "Thanks for the entertainment," she whispered, and dropped him in, swallowing seconds later with a long, exaggerated gulp. She tore the next roof off in one clean motion. 2 men screamed, diving behind a couch. She tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Let me guess. Builders, fishermen, maybe retired war criminals living off the grid?" "No," one of them cried. "We're teachers, just like you." Madeleine froze. Her eyes narrowed. The air turned still. "Just like me," she repeated, her voice now a dark, thunderous whisper. "You mean underpaid, overworked, humiliated, forced to smile at people who don't deserve it?" The men nodded rapidly, clinging to the couch as if it would save them. "Yeah," she murmured. "That does sound familiar." Then her face twisted into a sneer. "Too bad I hate teachers." She lunged forward, snapping the couch in 2 and grabbing both men at once. Their legs kicked wildly, one of them screaming her name, begging. She dropped them in one after the other. One swallow, gone. She stood up straight and exhaled in satisfaction. Delicious. She moved down the line, grabbing the next house like a child opening a present. The roof exploded into debris as she peeled it away. Another group of men, a bunkhouse. At least 7. They didn't beg. They held their hands up, shaking, knowing there was nothing to say. "Silent?" she said, arching a brow. "Smart." But still she crouched, opened her palm, and scooped all 7 up with a sickening grace. Their tiny bodies writhed against her skin. "I could squish you," she said thoughtfully. "Crack you like nuts between my fingers." Her eyes glinted. "But you've all earned the honour of joining me?" She tossed them in with a flick of her wrist, 7 men sliding across her tongue at once, screaming until the moment she swallowed. A long sigh escaped her lips. "Oh, boys," she purred, "you should have built a bigger village." And with that, she stomped forward, each step another roof torn, another group of pleading men ignored, scooped, and swallowed. No mercy, no hesitation. By the end of the hour, the once hidden village of North Albury was a crater-ridden ruin of broken homes and silenced lives. Madeleine stood amid the wreckage, licking the corner of her lips. "Maybe next," she said, "I find where the rest of the world's men are hiding." Chapter 4. Last bites of Albury smoke curled through the broken village, rooftops splintered like matchsticks beneath Madeleine's towering feet. Only a handful of men remained, darting between debris, breathless, desperate. She spotted them instantly. "There you are," she sang, stalking forward, each step sending shockwaves through the earth. "Thought you could hide until I got bored." She crouched low, her shadow drowning the wreckage. One man bolted. She blocked him with a single finger. Another tripped over shattered stone. She scooped them all up, 5 in total, squirming in her hand. Madeleine tilted her head, watching them sob and struggle. "This is what power feels like," she whispered. "No rules, no students, no bosses, just me and a full stomach." One by one, she tipped them past her lips, letting each tiny figure slide across her tongue before swallowing whole, gulp, gulp, gulp. The last screamed until the end. She rose tall amid the ruins, hands on hips, victorious. Nothing moved below. "Goodbye, Albury," she purred. "Class dismissed." With a smirk and a final step, she crushed the village sign beneath her heel and walked on.